It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is the 5th of March. This is the B block, the Bravo block. And John, what do we do in the Bravo block?
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
It is. And we start off with this one right here.
It's number 3.
John, have you ever flown? I know you don't do a lot of traveling. When's the last time you've been on a plane? Has that been recently?
Yeah, I'd say recently.
Okay. Do you ever have the problem where someone is playing their phone or their DVD player or whatever, their electronic device emitting music or speech or whatever like that, and they don't have headphones on, and it bothers everybody?
Yeah, and in fact, one of my favorite people on X, I'm bringing up the post right now, just mentioned it yesterday, Brad. Why is that top of mind?
Because United Airlines has essentially changed their terms of service, which nobody reads, but now it states that if you do not use headphones on your electronic device, which emits audio waves, that is reason for you to be thrown off the flight. It is a reason for you to be told obviously if in the middle of the air, although, I did read a story that United Airlines was testing a new bad passenger ejection seat where they would just hit a button and passenger would just be flown out of the plane. But anyway, they're putting this in the terms of service. Now, I can't see, this is what bothers me. And, when I'm in public, I try to be a good citizen. I don't try to cause any problems. You know what I mean? I don't butt in line or anything like that. And I think most people, like 98% of the people in the United States are like that. But that's that 2% that are just, they don't give a poop about anybody. It's all about them. You know what I'm saying, John?
I do. And I found the tweet that I saw yesterday, the X post that yesterday, pardon me, from a fantastic follow named Chris Ferguson. And you can find him, it looks like Christo, and then if you were to spell Ferguson, Ferguson, like the town, Christo Ferguson. And he writes, if you're one of those a-holes that blasts audio from your phone without headphones, United Airlines might just ban you from their flights.
Yes.
And then Chris links to that post. And Brad, yesterday I was at my gym and loudly I heard someone say, yeah, I'll go ahead and send it over to you. I put it in the original email, like at a huge decibel. Like you would think that he was an old person that couldn't hear, and he was about my age. But that's the same thing. Who talks on the phone at the gym? Shut up. Go out into the breezeway, step outside of the gym, or if you must, go into the locker room and have that conversation. Don't have that conversation on the gym floor.
John, I didn't hear you. What'd you say again now?
I know. Well, that's because of your hearing, Brad.
You were saying old people. Okay, so I'm on top of this story, right? And see, to me, it's a common courtesy. I got my headphones, Matter of fact, I've got my little, the one thing is I have a set of good studio headphones, by the way, which I have lost. And I have to tell you, John, when you get up there in years like me, just yesterday, I bought a super duper deal on Amazon. I got 4 Amazon AirTags for $60. Now, normally they'd be like 4 of them would be $120. I got them for half price. You know why, John?
Are you going to attach an AirTag to your memory so hopefully you can find your memory?
No, they've come out with, hold on a minute. They've come out with second generation AirTags, and they're closing out the first generation AirTags. So, and to the point where I've got a really nice pair of Sony headphones that I've had for years. I can't find them anymore. They're gone. And I know it's to the point where I'm up to my phone. I should admit this. I think I'm pushing up my limit because someone told me you can only have 16 AirTags on your phone on an Apple device. I think I'm up to 13 right now. So,
and what do you own that's possibly of enough value to need to track?
John?
It's certainly not one of your automobiles.
In the C block, do you want me to go through my list of what I have AirTags?
Yeah, I'd love to hear it, Brad.
Okay, we'll move on to number 2. And that's because these ladies come in and they sing this.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
Okay, yesterday, and you don't think I get feedback from the show. Yesterday, I got some pushback from a texter listening to the show complaining that I was wrong about the new Department of War Lucas drones. And Lucas stands for low cost, unmanned, something or other, combat air surveillance or something like that. Okay. And I referred to the fact that these were, and only most of the time it's the United States that gets our stuff stolen. If you know the thing about the Chinese, they grab a piece of our equipment and they benchmark it and they tear it apart and they make it better, cheaper, and then it ends up on Amazon for a fraction of the price of what the American thing is. I mentioned the fact that the story was that the Iranians had developed a very technically advanced drone, which they have been selling to the Russians, and they've been sending this into Ukraine, and this has been doing a lot of the damage in Ukraine. And I said that the American drone, that what they did was they found one of them. Ukrainians found one that had not crashed and actually had landed but didn't explode and was in almost perfect condition, and they sent it to the U.S. and the United States, a private company out in Arizona. I did my research on this, John. A private company out in Arizona reverse engineered it, and the new Lucas drone is almost an exact copy of the Iranian Shahed 136 drone. And that's what they're shooting over there. And that's one of the secret weapons. And John, remember, I've talked about this for a couple of years. Instead of building, $2 billion fighter jets, knock off a bunch of drones. $35,000 for these drones. $35,000.
What would the advantage of them be, Brad?
Well, but what you do is they're cheap, and what you do is it's exactly what the Russians have done is essentially you essentially, I guess in the sports zone or the sports term, you'd say you flood the zone. So in other words, these things are cheap. And I've said this all along. I said we should be building ready for this, John. I'm going to make a mention. I haven't mentioned it in a couple of weeks. We should.
Oh yeah, I'm sure it's been a while.
We should be building Mustang P51 Mustangs, and maybe there'd be a couple $200,000-$300,000 a piece, and we would train a bunch of 18-year-old pilots, and we would just flood the zone. So in other words, instead of like us going over there with like a couple F-35s or an F-18 or F-15 or F-16, we'd show up with 150 P51 Mustangs flying in formation, and then the gunners, the defenses, they'd shoot up like the anti-aircraft, the SAMs, the surface air missiles, and they wouldn't have enough of them, so some of them would get through, and they would bomb whatever they're going for. Get what I'm saying, John?
Yeah, it's amazing you're not contracted by the Department of Defense. Excuse me, the Department of War.
Now,
what was the specific listener feedback though, and what were they correcting you on specifically?
They said that the drone was a new design that I didn't know what I was talking about. And if you look at the pictures of the drones, they're almost identical. Now, here's what's interesting. And this will give you an example of how the United States is so far ahead of other countries and how Iran is so far ahead of other countries, okay? The article I read, I really did a deep dive on this. The article I read about this said that the Iranians have been supplying these drones to the Russians, but the Russians wanted to build their own. So they built a factory, and they don't have enough skilled labor. So I swear this is a true story. So what the Russians have been doing is they've been doing two things. The Russians have come up with a university that they are attracting young students to go to this university. It's like a technical university, but the university is really a front for the fact that these young kids right out of high school who are 17, 18, 19 years old go to this university, and they spend up to 15 hours a day building these licensed copies of the Iranian drones in Russia. And I'm going like, what? And they said,
well, that's a good plan. I mean, they are getting an education. How is that different than what Bart Inman puts his students through?
Okay, but the other point was the word got out that this is what's happening. So not too many people are applying for this university anymore. So the Russians are actually sending people to Africa, and they are enticing young African women between the ages of 18 and 25. And they're telling them, oh, come to Russia, and we've got a job for you, and you're going to love the working conditions. It's air conditioned, and you have your own, you have a dorm, and you have your own bed you sleep in. And then they get to Russia, and they're working 15 hours a day making drones.
Yeah, it's still a better life than like carrying water on your head from the river, isn't it?
I don't know. But see, the problem with this is, Russia has this, we talk about, my thing about the population going backwards, as opposed to my professor from SIU who said by the year 2010, I think he got in bed with what's his face with
Roger Ehrlich.
No. Who's the vice president? Al Gore. And Al Gore. You know what? I love a guy that is true to his wife. He's been married to Tipper how many years now? Anyway, you get that joke, John? No, you don't get that joke?
No.
He divorced Tipper some years ago, and he's got a new hottie he's married to. But anyway.
Oh, I hadn't. Al Gore did, really?
Oh yeah. Oh
wow, I had no idea.
Remember,
okay.
Tipper Gore was the one who wanted to put labels on songs and labels on video games and stuff like that.
Yeah, I was kind of around and involved in politics then. I remember.
Right. Well, he ditched her, so he's got a new young hottie.
Go ahead.
Okay, so. Where was I going with this? I can't even remember where I was going with this. Okay.
It was a great correct. So I think you have yet to thank the listener for offering their feedback. And maybe they were accurate and maybe they were not, but we appreciate their feedback.
No, the article said, and I read 2 or 3 articles, they said it's almost an exact copy of the Iranian drone. Now, the interesting part of this is the Iranians, they use an engine, and most of them are gas-powered. I was correct on that. They use a gas-powered engine. But the gas-powered engine they use is a knockoff of a German engine. These guys got some German engines. The Iranians did. They got the German engines. They took the German engines apart. They reverse-engineered the German engines, and they gave it the same model number as the German engine. Talking about, they could have been nice and say, well, if the German engine's a 500, we'll call ours the 550. No, they gave it the same model number. God, those Iranians, they need some help, don't they? And by the way, that story that was on Fox News at the top of the hour is like 3 days old. The story about the Israelis dogfighting the Iranian jet fighter.
Yeah, why did they repeat it on Fox News?
I have no idea. It's on Fox News. The interesting thing is, I think because of the fact that it got headlines, because the Israeli IDF put together the gun sight camera of the Israeli fighter. I think it was an F-35, shot down the Iranian fighter, and they put it to Star Wars music. So
that gave it a new life.
I guess so. Okay, you ready for number 1?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
John, you think that I do nothing but sitting around watching my watch to make sure I can get to the 4 o'clock buffet at the casinos like all the other old people, but I don't. I do research for this program, and I came across this yesterday. I thought to myself, I have never heard of this, and I thought to myself, I wonder if John's heard of this, okay? Have you ever heard of hemp graphene batteries?
No, not at all. What are those?
Okay. Let me give you this. This is fascinating. And I'm not making this up. Hemp graphene, spelled Graphene batteries, are supercapacitors use carbonized fibrous waste from hemp plants to create electrodes that perform on par with or better than conventional graphene. They offer a sustainable 1,000 times cheaper alternative for energy storage, boasting faster charging, higher energy density, and longer lifespans than traditional lithium-ion batteries. And it goes on to say key takeaways. Hemp bast fibers, B-A-S-T, fibers are cooked into carbon nanosheets, creating a porous material that is 1,000 times cheaper to produce than traditional graphene. Performance. These supercapacitors can offer energy densities 2 to 3 times higher than commercial counterparts. Have you ever heard of this?
No, not at all. So does it say how they're made, or what was the source of this? Where did you find this?
Well, this was, and it's funny. After I saw this, I looked this up a couple times, and there's quite a bit of stuff on the internet about this. And I'm thinking to myself, but keep in mind, here's the interesting part. It says, and let me read the first paragraph again. Hemp graphene batteries use carbonized fibrous waste from hemp plants. They don't even use, this is like a secondary use of the hemp plants.
So like you're saying, sorry to interrupt, but what they're talking about is taking the stover or taking the stalk. So the part that you wouldn't think would be psychoactive, for example, you wouldn't take the flower, but you would rather take the stalk.
Yes. Now, you are on a first name basis with Eapen Thampy, correct?
I am, yeah.
I would love for you to contact him and see if he knows about this, because
I wonder if that might be a good C block for Friday.
Don't you think he's the authority on? He should be the authority on this. because he's Mr. Hemp, and to the point where I'm thinking to myself, I have never heard of this before. And the reason I found this was, and I was reading, matter of fact, this is actually sort of a strange story. There's a company that has, and I don't, are you familiar with the term, what they call thermal runaway? You know what thermal runaway is?
I don't. It sounds like a hot chick trying to get away from her boyfriend. The
problem with thermal, with a lot of these new batteries, and this is the problem that some of the, matter of fact, you've seen this story from time to time, that if a Tesla or other electric car catches fire, and I know I've talked about this with John Schneider, the chief of the Central County Fire and Rescue.
The spontaneous, like when a Tesla sets fire in a garage, right?
Well, the problem with it is that if you have, in most fires, if you take away the oxygen, and that's how like a CO2 fire extinguisher works, it depletes the fire of any oxygen, it goes out. And with water, what you're doing sort of the same thing. You're pushing down the flames, and you're essentially quenching the flames with water so that they don't have any air to breathe. Okay. In thermal runaway, it doesn't matter. And the problem they've had, some of these cars that have caught fire. Matter of fact, this is nerd stuff. There's a classic example of this. There is a big show in Louisville, Kentucky every year for all these, essentially it's like lawn equipment. It's like, all the big companies like Toro and things like that show up. And DeWalt, a couple years back, was showing their new commercial zero-turn lawnmower, okay? And thank God this was outside. This was outside in a parking lot area. And it caught fire, spontaneously caught fire. So the fire department shows up. And first, the firefighters come out with just their handheld extinguishers. It doesn't do anything. Then they come out with the small little hose. Like I don't know what they call it, but it's a smaller hose on the pumper. And they try to douse it with the smaller hose. And it doesn't do anything. They bring out the big hose. This goes on for like 20 minutes. And it's a lawnmower. And these guys are pouring water onto this thing. They can't get it out. Thermal runaway. Essentially what happens is it just feeds on itself. It doesn't need any outside air. It just keeps going and repeating the cycle. It's a cycle it just goes into. And it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And you can't interrupt it. So how I found out about this was there was a company advertising on one of these sites I was looking at that they have a thermal runaway can. And they talked about all the different problems with lithium-ion batteries. And what this can is, it's like a 55-gallon oil drum. And it's supposed to be used like industrial, where like a lot of places would be using a lot of hand tools with lithium-ion battery packs on them, stuff like that. You open up the lid of this can and you throw this thing in, and somehow or another it protects its insulator, stuff like that, and it protects the battery from runaway. They have the same thing at airlines right now. I don't know if you know this or not, but they have bags that if your battery pack on your phone or something like that goes into thermal runaway, the airlines now have these bags where you put it into the bag and they seal it, and it's supposed to kill, and it's like it's got, like, I don't know if it's got, it's got some fireproof material out of it. Still, essentially it's supposed to control the fire and eventually put it out so it doesn't burn the plane up. So you need to talk to Eapen about this. Hemp graphene, graphene.
Do you want me to see if he wants to do a few minutes with us tomorrow during C Block?
Just see if he knows about it and see,
Yeah, I'm not going to do that independently. If we're going to do it, we're going to multi-purpose it.
Okay, well, we can multi-purpose it, and he can bring us some hemp as well, too. How's that?
There we go, Brad. What is story number one today, though?
That was number one.
Oh, that was number one. I'm sorry, I lost track, Brad. It must be all this hemp stock that I've been chewing on like a cud.
John, I never lose track when you're doing the top three. I pay
I know you don't, Brad. That's
to you
very
doing
good.
the top three.
These were some great stories today.
Okay, we have to move on.